are in Missouri, as well as a little bit about what the participant experiences in the program. We're going to talk briefly about utilization of the program, as well as some of the outcomes we've seen recently, and then talk a little bit about two of our newer services, Web Coach, which we've done an upgrade on recently, and then a brand new service to the Missouri Tobacco Quitline, which is Text to Quit. So who is Alere Wellbeing? Well, we've been known by a couple different names over the years. We started out in 1993 as Group Health Cooperative, which was a small nonprofit here in Seattle, Washington. We were then known as Free and Clear for many years, and that name is still out there. And then last year we were purchased by a larger company called Alere Health, based out of Atlanta, Georgia. We partnered with the American Cancer Society in November of 2009, and since then have grown our client base to more than 700 commercial and health plan clients, as well as 28 state quit lines. Our clinical team designs our protocols with current evidence base in mind, and we also subject ourselves to continuous quality improvement. In an attempt to meet the changing health-related concerns of the present and the future, we really strive to evolve our product and our service offerings to make them as easily accessible as possible, while also introducing products such as web services, texting, and systems changes such as electronic referrals. So in addition to those involved in the everyday operations of the Quitline, such as the service delivery staff, Alere is also made up of clinicians and researchers as well, who are very active in the industry and the scientific community. We're really lucky to have such a diverse service delivery staff here, and that includes a great group of coaches who actually live and work in Missouri. And all of them have a ton of experience providing interventions for tobacco cessation. They're heavily trained when they first join the Quitline, and this continues with annual trainings, as well as weekly meetings with their supervisors, where they listen to their calls that have been recorded during the week, and they receive feedback and constructive criticism. Our service delivery staff service delivery staff training also includes a mandatory annual mental health and tobacco cessation training. And the goal of that is really to increase staff awareness about tobacco and mental illness and provide strategies for tailoring intervention for these kind of participants who are dealing with things such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, psychotic presentations, etc. So for those participants who reach out to the Quitline or come to us via the phone, we're excited to now have registration and coaching staff available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Both of these groups have English and Spanish-speaking staff members. Excuse me. And we have interpretive services available in over 100 different languages as well, and TTY for deaf of hard of hearing callers. So participants can also come to the Quitline via fax referral. This most often comes from a healthcare provider or even an employer sometimes. And the way that works is usually the provider or the clinician will work with their patient, fill out a fax referral form. It's just a one-page form, and they need to get their consent from the patient. They fax that into the Quitline. We then process that, and we reach out to the patient within 48 hours. If we don't get them on the first try, we do send a letter, as well as leave a message if they've checked the box that says it's okay to leave a message. And we reach out to them a minimum of 5 times. When we do reach out to them, we give them the option to enroll in the Quitline, and then we go from there. At the end of that, if the provider or the clinic or whoever has checked that they are a HIPAA-covered entity, we can fax them back an outcomes form which tells whether the participant enrolled or not, as well as whether they received any NRT. There's also the option to enroll in the program online. There's the website right here, the quitnow.net/Missouri, which is the web enroll site. It's custom to Missouri, and it mimics the registration process that a participant would experience on the phone. The tobacco section of the health.mo.gov site also has links to the web enroll page, as well as a click-to-call feature. So this is just a visual overview of the potential triage possibilities of service. We've got the web, fax, or phone, which are the three ways to kind of get into the program. From there, during the registration process, participants given an overview of the program, as well as their options for service, and then given the option to enroll. Once they enroll into the phone program, it should be noted too that web coach, NRT text, these are all options that can be combined, or if the participant doesn't want to use the web coach or the text or NRT even, they don't have to. Those are just options, and all can be used together. It's not a one or the other choice. So here's just a little kind of visual overview to our approach to cessation counseling. One of the things we really like to stress is that we deliver individually tailored counseling services. We don't use a scripted, one-size-fits-all approach. We have developed a cultural competency model, which is used for the training of staff, and that uses a cross-cultural approach, which kind of really just means making sure staff are aware of the universal social and health issues that affect different cultures. And comes down to treating everyone as an individual and ensuring that our staff understands how to provide individually appropriate services. We realize that not everyone's the same. Our highly trained coaches utilize social cognitive theory during intervention calls, and they employ multiple counseling strategies depending on the participant's needs. These include motivational interviewing, cognitive behavior strategies, and mindfulness approaches. And we kind of like to say that our program treats from three angles. The physical addiction side is treated with medication when possible, and we discuss appropriate use and access of NRT to all participants. The psychological dependency is treated with cognitive behavioral coaching, and the behavior patterns are addressed by teaching behavioral strategies and skills. So this is a bit of a walkthrough through the program. Registration process is participant-focused, and it's MDS, or minimal data set compliant. During this registration process, stage-based materials, including a quick guide, are mailed, and additional materials are also available to populations like pregnant women, LGBT callers, Native Americans, youth callers. All have special materials for them. The registration call, which is the first call, usually lasts about 5 to 10 minutes, and then the participant is offered the option to be transferred directly to a quick coach. This first intervention call is typically 20 to 25 minutes long, although it's very participant dependent and can be much shorter if there's a time constraint. During this first call, participant and the coach discuss the participant's tobacco use and their quit history. Participants are encouraged to set a quit date and then works with the coach to develop a quit plan. This includes discussing individual triggers and setting up a plan for eliminating these as much as possible. If the participant's interested in the use of NRT or nicotine replacement therapy, they're medically screened by the coach and dosed if appropriate. And like I said before, NRT and medication support is discussed regardless of whether the participant is receiving NRT through the Quitline. Many participants supplement the Quitline NRT offering with additional NRT or are using prescription medication. The follow-up sessions really focus on keeping the participant quit by addressing relapse, managing urges to smoke, and giving support. So a popular question that we often get is, how long does the program take to complete? This gives you a general idea of the timeline. The length of the program really is dependent on the individual. The Missouri Quitline does not limit the amount of times an individual can re-enroll. However, there is a limit on how often a participant can order NRT. After the registration, and usually the first call is completed right after registration, it's advised that a quit date be set 2 to 3 weeks in advance, and that is when the second call occurs, is on the quit date. The quit date follow-up call is then usually scheduled 2 to 3 weeks after that. Excuse me. And again, all dependent on the participant. And then in the following month, there's another relapse prevention coaching call. I've included this outcome survey icon on the bottom right corner there. Now that only occurs if the Missouri Quitline is currently doing an evaluation, and that would occur 7 months after the registration date. And then the green icon on the right there for inbound support is just to show that participants can always call in whenever they need. They don't have to wait for their scheduled call. Anytime they want to call in, they're absolutely free to have an ad hoc call, and it does not count towards their 4 calls if they're in the 4-call program. So here's a look at the current offerings of the Missouri Tobacco Quitline. We've got a 1-call program that's available to everybody, a 4-call program which is available to uninsured and Medicaid participants only, and then we've got a 10-call program which is available to pregnant women. All of these come with integrated web coach, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, as well as the option to enroll in Text to Quit, which we'll also discuss. They also have the option to just get materials only if they're not interested in trying to make a quit right now, or if they don't want phone counseling. Currently, there's 2 weeks of nicotine patches or gum available to everyone except for Medicaid enrollees. And I know that's because in the state of Missouri, Medicaid actually has a pretty rich benefit for their beneficiaries, so it's not offered through the Quitline. We also offer 12 weeks of nicotine patches or gum to participants who are fax referred from a Wise Woman clinic. So that's a pretty specific group of people. We also refer interested participants to local, state, and national community resources should they want additional help on the ground or with face-to-face counseling. And then callers with health plan or employer benefits that Lear provides cessation services for are also offered the option to be triaged into those programs. So here's a look at just some of the utilization and a little bit of the outcomes that we've seen recently. We had almost 9,000 Missouri residents call and register for services in the last fiscal year, and almost 90% of these callers were tobacco users. The rest being proxies, providers, general public, maybe with questions or requesting materials. We received almost 1,000 fax referrals from 80 different providers and clinics. In the top how heard abouts, which is something that we ask at registration, how did you hear about the Quitline? Last year were TV commercial, health professional, and family and friend. And I should note that health professional actually usually takes up a larger percentage of that. The CDC ran a very large national media campaign last spring. I'm sure many of you have seen the commercials, and that drove quite a bit of volume to the Missouri Quitline, so that's the reason for TV commercial being so high last year. Here's just a quick look at kind of insurance status for last year's tobacco users. As you can see, we had a pretty large portion of callers were had Medicaid or were uninsured. And I think this is pretty good because it kind of shows that these populations obviously have been shown to have high prevalence in smoking. So it's nice that Missouri is really doing well to reach out to these populations. So the last evaluation report that was published for the Quitline came out in March. I've just listed a few of the metrics that were found in that report here. It's been shown that satisfaction of services provided is a really important quality or indicator of Quitline quality, excuse me. So we were really pleased by the high rate of satisfaction among Missouri residents who called the Quitline. Most evaluators tend to consider 80% or above to be successful, so we quite surpassed that. We were also pleased with a 30-day respond and quit rate of 24%. And I should note, too, that during the evaluation time, NRT wasn't available to all the time. So I think this is a pretty good rate considering we do know that medication helps quit rates, of course. So to have this high of a rate without medication available to everyone is pretty good. And just for clarification here, this 30-day respond and quit rate, it means that when surveyed 7 months after registering in the program, 24% of respondents haven't quit for 30 days or more. We also showed that 62% of those not quit have reduced the number of cigarettes they smoke by an average of 12 per day, and 88% have reduced their cigarette use by at least a quarter. So what I would like to do now, technology permitting, is walk you through WebCoach just a little bit. WebCoach is something that is offered to all participants who enroll in the program, whether it be just the 1 call or the 4 call or the 10 call, as long as they have an email address. So just 1 second here as I log into a demo account that I've created for WebCoach. All right. So this is our 2.0 version of WebCoach. It was upgraded at the end of 2011. And this is the home page here, which is the first thing that participants see when they arrive and log onto the site. There's several areas where this page is personalized to the individual participant. This includes their name, information about their quit date, their quit status, important quit stats, as well as targeted content. This middle section here is really targeted to the participant. Should they have mentioned that they had a certain chronic condition during registration or things like that, the content will adjust specifically to what they've said on the phone. So it's really integrated with the phone program. First place we're going to look at here is the quitting plan. So this plan really mirrors the quit plans that the participants develop on the phone with the coaches and guides the participants through the 5 main elements of a quitting plan. We've got the setting a goal quit date for when they will stop using all forms of tobacco, choosing a cessation medication to support their quit. Now I should note that because this program is integrated with the phone program and it's not just a standalone program, participants can only order medication on the phone. It's not available through the website. However, they can get tips, read about the medication, all that sort of thing in this section here. There's a section for developing techniques and strategies to conquer their urges to use tobacco, section for coming up with realistic ways to control their environment so they'll be less likely to smoke, as well as a section for creating ideas for how they will get social support during their quit attempt. So these elements are structured around the 5 behaviors that Alere Wellbeing has identified as being key to a successful quit, and they are based on the recommendations made in the 2008 USPHS Clinical Practice Guidelines. The quit plan features interactive. It gives the user tailored recommendations for developing a realistic plan to quit tobacco based on the information that they enter about themselves and their tobacco use habits. So I've gone ahead and filled in a quitting plan here. I'm going to quit on September 20th. I'm going to use the patch. I've entered in some triggers that I have here. I smoke after eating. I smoke when I drink alcohol. And it gives you options for selecting some things that you're going to do to manage those triggers. Controlling my environment here. A couple things I'm going to do at home and at work on my commute. And then a couple people that are going to give me social support. Once the participant has filled out the entire quit plan, there is the option to email it to themselves so they can tack it up on their wall in their office as a constant reminder, or they can also email it to other people, friends, families, allies that are going to help them quit smoking. So then the next place we'll look at is the Web Coach Practices section. All of the learning resources that are on Web Coach are contained within these little microsites. And they're organized by the 4 essential practices to quit for life. All these essential practices are structured around the key elements to a successful quit that evidence-based research has identified. They include learning how to quit at your own pace, learning how to conquer urges to use tobacco, learning how to use cessation medications so that they really work, and learning how to become a non-tobacco user for life versus just simply focusing on quitting. Within each of these little microsites, it's got original articles, videos, e-lessons, little interactive worksheets, and they're really designed to provide participants with the knowledge, behavioral strategies, and the cognitive skills that they need to successfully quit. It's also important to note that once a participant quits, reports that they're quit, Web Coach will shift from helping them plan for their quit to content aimed at helping keep them on track and motivated to stay quit. Each section also has an introductory video here to help explain the content and how it relates to each individual practice. So there's lots to do in each of these sections. I'm just kind of breezing through these pretty quickly. Next is one of the more popular sections of the website, and these are this is the progress or the tracker section. This first tracker up here is a tobacco usage tracker, which is relevant before someone has quit, helps them track how much tobacco they've used over whatever particular time period they've entered. So I've entered in a week here. Tells you whether your smoking has increased or decreased by what percentage over that certain amount of time. We also have a quit stats tracker here. So kind of keeps a running count of how much money the participant has spent on tobacco over whatever time period they've entered, as well as gives the daily average that they're spending on tobacco products. There's also the option to compare this to the cost of quit medication over a week, a month, 6 months, or a year. And at the bottom, we also have a cost savings calculator, which just shows projected spending over, again, a month, 6 months, or 1 year. Participants have the option to post to the community, which we'll look at that section in just 1 second, what else they could be doing with the money that they're spending. And again, if a participant should show that they're quit, say that they're quit, all of these trackers will change. This tobacco tracker actually becomes an urge tracker, where participants can go in, enter in what time of day, when they're having urges, specifically what they were doing at that time, which can help identify triggers. The quit stats tracker changes and starts to show how much money has been saved on tobacco, as well as how many smoke-free breaths a participant has taken. And again, the cost savings calculator, instead of showing projected spending, it of course shows how much money you'll be saving if you stay quit over that amount of time. So the last section I want to look at with you is the community section. We know this is also a really popular section of the website. It's entirely voluntary, but in the discussion forums, participants can read and post on numerous topics that are relevant to quitting or staying quit. We also have a blog section where we have staff and expert blogs posted. There's also a section to join groups, and we don't create any of these groups. They're actually just created by people who are on Web Coach. But there's quite a variety, and people really like to just kind of have that camaraderie with other people who are quitting. think I'm going to stop there with the web coach demo, but hopefully that's given you just kind of a brief glimpse into it. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is what's brand new, actually just launched in the middle of August for the program, and that is called Text to Quit, which is a new way to connect with participants. It uses an evidence-based series of text messages that are personalized to a participant's quitting plan, and it helps participants stay engaged during their quit by managing urges, preventing relapse, and so on. So why text messaging? Well, we know that there's 270 million mobile phones in the U.S., and this is growing every day. We also know that 85% of adults in the U.S. own a cell phone, and that rate really increases to 95% of adults who are aged 18 to 34. Again, Text to Quit is also based on the U.S. Public Health Service clinical practice guidelines, and it has been proven effective in peer-reviewed studies. It's fully integrated with the Quitline and with Web Coach. Just to give you a couple examples of that integration, say a participant changes their quit date via Text to Quit, which is possible. Our system here and the Quit Coaches are automatically updated, as well as Web Coach. The quit date section of Web Coach is also updated as well. So vice versa, if a participant should change their quit date on Web Coach or with a Quit Coach, Text to Quit messages then adapt to the new quit date. If they say they're already quit, obviously they're going to stop sending messages about how to prepare for their quit and start focusing more on relapse. If a participant indicates that they've had a relapse via Text to Quit, coaches and Web Coach are also updated immediately. Should a participant order NRT over the phone, the participant begins to receive tips via Text to Quit specifically for the medication that they ordered. Participants can also track their daily cigarette usage via Text to Quit and have it show in the tobacco tracker that we looked at on Web Coach. And should a participant reschedule an upcoming call, Text to Quit will also adjust the notification schedule for sending a text for the upcoming call. If participants opt into the program, which is offered at registration to anyone that has a cell phone, they can receive up to 300 texts that are totally tailored to their quitting plan that lasts for a 4-month period. This slide kind of just shows some examples of the type of text that a participant might receive during the length of their quit. One of the features I like is that if a participant's feeling an urge to smoke, they can send a specific one-word text to the system, and they'll get an immediate text back with a game or a quiz to play. We know that cravings or urges to smoke normally last about 3 to 5 minutes, so this is just a way to occupy the participant for a few minutes and take their mind off of the craving. And so far we're seeing about 25% of people who are offered Text to Quit are opting into the program. So, again, I really apologize that you are unable to use the phones at this time. Let's see if we've had any questions come in. All right, so we had a question from Rita about Missouri offering NRT, and if so, how do people obtain them? So I think I answered that one a little bit, but right now we do have a 2-week offering of NRT for everyone except for Medicaid callers. And then for those women that are fax referred in through the Wise Women Clinic, we do offer 12 weeks of NRT to them as well. They're medically screened during the coaching calls for NRT and then dosed if appropriate. We had a question from Terry. It says Medicaid does not cover the patches. Are there benefits to Medicaid clients using this program? You know, Terry, I personally I can't speak to exactly what Medicaid does and does not cover in Missouri. Obviously, it's different for every state. I was under the impression that Medicaid did cover patches and gum, and that is the reason for Missouri the Quitline not offering those. That's something I'm going to have to check on for you. In terms of are there benefits to Medicaid clients using the program, I would say absolutely there are still benefits. A lot of people choose to not use NRT at all. And if they do, the coaches really work with them to work on ways to look at, saving a little bit of money to buy NRT over the counter. They can provide options for where to go look for NRT as well. And then even just kind of not looking at using NRT, it has definitely been shown that just working with the counselors, working with the coaches, and completing all the calls greatly increases a person's chances of quitting. Okay, question from Rita again. Can you talk more about the interaction between providers and the Quitline? What sort of feedback can you expect? What reports will be generated? Can they find out about a referred individual's level of participation? That's a really good question, Rita. In terms of feedback, immediate feedback, the outcomes report that's generated, if you fax refer a participant, is really the best way to get that immediately. And really the only way to get it at a participant level, on a participant level basis. All of the other reports, which I'll talk about in 1 second, are aggregates, so they won't show things at a participant level. But as long as you're fax referring from somewhere that's a HIPAA-covered entity, we can fax back individual outcomes reports that do describe if the person's enrolled, if they have, did they enroll in the 1-call or the 4-call or the 10-call program, did they order NRT, if they ordered NRT, what type of NRT did they get, things like that. In terms of reports, we do generate reports for the state, and I would imagine that that is something that we would probably have to talk to the state about in terms of things like how many faxes did a particular clinic send in a month, and out of those, how many accepted services, how many declined, how many did we not reach. Those kind of things may be made available to you by the state, but I can't personally speak to that. I should mention, too, that it is also possible for participants to request letters of completion over the phone. So anytime they're on the phone, they can request a letter of completion, which will be generated and mailed out to them. So this is often used for employers to kind of determine whether their employees have or have not completed the program, but it can be used for anything really. So I've got a question. Next question here is from Andrea, and it's how do we facilitate faxed referrals? So Andrea, the best way is to obtain the fax form, which would be the very first thing to do. And you can do that by reaching out to the state, or I can also make that form available to everyone that enrolled today. And then you really just want to work with your patients, just do a very brief tobacco intervention if they are a smoker, fill out the form, and then fax it into the Quitline. And then, like I said, as long as you're HIPAA covered, we will send outcomes to you and let you know participant by participant what happened. So a question from Linda here. If someone has already quit for up to 21 days, are they still eligible for the program? Another great question, Linda. And yes, they absolutely are. We do have people that enroll from time to time who have been quit for 6 months or longer. They just want to speak with the coaches, really get that support. But yes, there's no limit on when someone can enroll, depending on how long they've been quit. Sometimes benefits are limited by if the participant is already quit or if they're ready to quit within 30 days, but no such limitations if they're already quit. Got another question from Rita here is how do you dose for the NRT? Dosing is, I'm not the clinical expert here by any means, but I do know that the dosing is based on a couple of things such as, well, mainly how many cigarettes do they smoke a day is going to be dependent on the milligrams of patches or gum that they receive. So it's really tobacco usage and the amount of that determines for the dosing of NRT. I'm not sure if that's exactly your question, Rita, but like I said, we do also medically screen. I believe there's 9 or 10 questions, medical screening questions that occur before someone can be dosed for NRT. Question from Pam, who did contact Medicaid, and they do cover a great deal of NRT. If necessary, contact Medicaid Direct and then get a clinical edit. Pharmacies may not have processed the claim correctly. Excellent. That's great news, Pam. That was the impression that I was under before, and I know that oftentimes Medicaid can be slightly difficult to work with, but I think we've found here in our experience that persistence really pays off when working with CMS or Medicaid office. So very helpful, Pam. Thank you very much. So that is the end of the questions that I have. Were there any others coming in? Feel free to raise your hand as well, and that'll let me know that you have a question, and then we can maybe type it in. All right, Haley, I see that your hand is raised. I'm guessing your microphone's still not working, Haley? That would be a no. So it looks like Haley and Rita still have questions. If you guys want to type them in real quick, I apologize for that being the only method for communicating with me, but I'm happy to answer them. Oh, I answered Haley's question. Excellent. Thank you, Haley. And it looks like I've answered Rita's questions as well. So if there are no other questions, once again, I really do apologize for the technical difficulties. And I will make my email, I believe I sent it out already, but I will make my email address available for anyone that participated in this call, as well as include the attachment for the fax referral form that you can make copies of should you want to start using it. So once again, I really appreciate everybody's patience and participation in the call today. And have a great, oh, Rita's got one more question. Will an archive of this webinar be available anywhere? Yes, it will, Rita. I did record, and I will have to speak with Leslie Murphy and find out exactly where they are posting that. But I will make sure that I include it in my email to everyone. I know that they are going to be hosting it on a site somewhere that's going to be accessible for those who couldn't make it today. So again, I will include that in the email. All right. Well, that looks like all. Again, thank you for joining, and I wish everyone a great day.